They don't want fame. They don't leave messages, and they don't care who you are. Unlike most criminal groups, they aren't driven by money, power, or even ideology. They only believe in one thing: chaos. A name that started as an obscure phrase in the dark corners of the internet is now being whispered by police and intelligence agencies worldwide. No lives matter. This is the terrifying rise of a new kind of extremist group, one that thrives on unpredictability, spreading violence with no clear motive. And the scariest part? They could be anywhere. At first, No Lives Matter wasn't even considered a real threat. It began as an online subculture. Edgy memes, disturbing jokes, and dark philosophy about the meaninglessness of life. But by 2021, reports of disturbing incidents linked to their message started emerging. A series of seemingly random stabbings in the US and Europe all bore the same eerie signature. Suspects who claimed to be part of a bigger movement with no political or ideological agenda. Just destruction. The first widely recognized attack linked to No Lives Matter happened in Berlin, Germany in 2022. A 19-year-old university student walked into a crowded mall, pulled out a knife, and began stabbing people at random. Before security could stop him, he left 6 victims bleeding on the floor. When questioned, he only had one thing to say: nothing matters. No lives matter. It wasn't an isolated incident. Across Europe, similar acts of violence began surfacing, each committed by young individuals who seemingly had no prior criminal history or extremist ties. Law enforcement initially dismissed them as random acts of mental instability, but investigators soon discovered chilling similarities. Authorities found a disturbing pattern. The attackers weren't acting alone. They were part of an underground online movement. Private forums on the dark web contained encrypted messages and disturbing guides detailing how to carry out senseless violence while avoiding detection. Some posts even included eerie slogans like, "Pure chaos is the only truth." It was no longer just a subculture, it was becoming a movement. By 2023, No Lives Matter had made its way to the United States. The FBI started noticing disturbing trends in certain violent crimes: lone attackers, random victims, and no clear motives. In Los Angeles, a group of masked individuals ambushed pedestrians late at night, attacking them with baseball bats and disappearing into the darkness. In Chicago, a subway security camera caught a man shoving an unsuspecting stranger onto the tracks, only to walk away expressionless. With no demands, no political statements, and no ransom requests, law enforcement struggled to classify the attacks. They weren't gang-related. They weren't linked to terrorism. They were something else entirely. No Lives Matter recruits operate differently than any traditional extremist group. Instead of organized leadership, it's a decentralized movement, inspired individuals rather than structured members. There's no single leader or headquarters. They spread ideology through social media, dark web forums, and encrypted messaging apps. They encourage random acts of violence to spread fear and confusion. This makes them almost impossible to track, let alone stop. Law enforcement agencies have tried to shut down online communities tied to No Lives Matter. But for every forum they close, new ones emerge under different names. The group doesn't rely on funding, making it difficult to trace financial transactions. Unlike traditional terrorist organizations, which often seek media attention, No Lives Matter avoids public claims of responsibility. Their goal isn't recognition, it's to spread terror silently, making the crimes even more chilling. By late 2023, the first confirmed arrests of No Lives Matter members took place in London, Paris, and New York. Authorities uncovered encrypted chat logs, disturbing digital journals, and even homemade instruction manuals detailing how to blend in before committing violent acts. One of the arrested individuals, an 18-year-old college student, had written, "It's not about revenge. It's not about hate. It's about nothingness. The only way to prove nothing matters is to erase everything." Psychologists and law enforcement officials were baffled. This wasn't terrorism. It was nihilism turned into violence. The rise of No Lives Matter has left governments worldwide struggling to respond. Traditional counterterrorism strategies don't work against a group with no leaders, no demands, and no political motives. Surveillance can't track them because they operate in the shadows of the internet. They don't communicate publicly, making intelligence gathering nearly impossible. Anyone can be recruited, from disillusioned teens to seemingly ordinary adults. In a world where most threats are predictable, No Lives Matter is terrifyingly random. As of 2024, No Lives Matter remains an evolving threat. Despite dozens of arrests and ongoing investigations, new attacks continue to surface in Europe, North America, and even Australia. Authorities warn that the biggest danger is their unpredictability. Without patterns, motives, or clear targets, anyone, anywhere, could be the next victim. But the real question remains: is this just the beginning? Or has No Lives Matter already won by proving their message? That nothing matters? Authorities believe that part of what fuels No Lives Matter is the online echo chamber effect. On hidden forums, members reinforce each other's beliefs, pushing individuals deeper into nihilism and violence. Some chat logs recovered from raids reveal horrifying conversations. User 1. Thinking about doing it. What's the best way to make it quick? User 2. Don't think, just act. That's the only way to prove nothing matters. User 3. Make sure it's random. Predictability is weakness. These discussions create a dangerous environment where the more extreme someone is, the more they are celebrated. This isn't just a group of criminals, it's a growing digital cult of chaos. Not every attempted attack is successful, but failed attempts are just as terrifying. In multiple cities, law enforcement has stopped individuals with detailed plans, weapons, and instructions from online groups. One such case was in Toronto, Canada, in early 2024. A 20-year-old man was arrested with a notebook titled "The Final Act," outlining a public attack in disturbing detail. The only thing that stopped him? A tip-off from a former classmate who noticed his sudden obsession with violent philosophy and cryptic posts online. Despite the arrests, authorities fear there are many more out there, quietly waiting for their moment to strike. Experts studying No Lives Matter warn that it's not just about violence. It's about the psychological impact. Many of those who get involved aren't traditional criminals. They are disillusioned young people, isolated and lost. Some psychologists compare it to a modern-day death cult, offering an escape from feelings of insignificance. A former member who was arrested explained, "It's not about killing people. It's about breaking reality, making people feel unsafe in a world they think is predictable." That's what makes No Lives Matter so terrifying. It's not driven by greed, revenge, or ideology. It's driven by pure destruction. Social media platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and Discord have unknowingly played a role in spreading No Lives Matter ideology. While most of their activities take place in the dark web, they leave breadcrumbs on mainstream platforms, cryptic usernames, disturbing quotes, and hidden messages in viral videos. Law enforcement has identified several high-profile influencers who unknowingly share memes and content that originated from these extremist groups. Some edgy internet trends turn out to be recruitment tactics, pushing impressionable youth towards darker, more dangerous communities. This has led to a massive crackdown, with social media companies banning accounts tied to No Lives Matter. But with every ban, new ones appear under different names, keeping their movement alive. One of the most chilling discoveries tied to No Lives Matter is what law enforcement calls the number code. In multiple crime scenes linked to the group, authorities found sequences of numbers scribbled on walls, written in blood, or sent in online messages. The meaning? Still unknown. Some believe it's a ranking system, numbers representing how many victims the attacker has claimed. Others suggest it's a hidden language, with messages only members can decode. The most unsettling theory? It's a countdown to something bigger. And the scariest part? The numbers keep appearing in new crime scenes worldwide. Governments around the world are struggling to stop No Lives Matter before it spreads even further. Some countries have dedicated cyber task forces, hunting down forums and shutting them down before they can recruit more members. Others are using AI-driven surveillance, scanning the internet for key phrases and suspicious activity. But the biggest challenge? Stopping something that doesn't want to be found. No funding trails, no clear leaders, no identifiable pattern. Authorities have never seen anything like this before. At first, No Lives Matter seemed like a scattered, chaotic movement. But recent events suggest they may be evolving. In late 2023, an attack in Barcelona, Spain, showed clear coordination. Security footage captured 3 individuals, all masked, attacking separate locations at the exact same time. This was not random. This raises a terrifying question. Is No Lives Matter becoming more structured? If they're no longer just a collection of lone actors but an organized network, the world may be dealing with an entirely new kind of terrorism. The biggest success of No Lives Matter isn't the attacks. It's the fear they create. Even in cities where no incidents have occurred, people feel less safe. Online rumors and fake threats fuel paranoia. Schools and workplaces have issued new security protocols just in case. Governments warn the public. If you see something suspicious, report it immediately. But with No Lives Matter, there is nothing to see. Until it's too late. Despite all the investigations, arrests, and studies, so many questions remain unanswered. Who really started No Lives Matter? What do the numbers mean? Is there a bigger event they are planning? Can this kind of pure chaos ever be stopped? Authorities fear that we may never know the full truth, until it's too late. For now, No Lives Matter remains one of the most chilling criminal movements in history. It has no ideology, no clear leaders, and no end goal, only a path of senseless destruction. And perhaps, that is what makes them more dangerous than any criminal group before them. As law enforcement fights an invisible enemy, the only thing we know for sure is this. They're still out there. They're still growing. And the worst may be yet to come.